$1 million, it's not gonna happen. If you wanna lowball me, don't do it. Shawn Porter says he ain't accepting $1 million, but he want to fight Terrence Crawford. He's down to get it on. He's the mandatory, but don't lowball me. Don't you do it. Don't do it. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the Super Chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We definitely working. So, Shawn Porter on his podcast, he recently had some words for Terrence Crawford and his team. He says he's down to take the fight. He says, I've told him, tell Mr. Bob Arum, I don't mean any disrespect. I know he doesn't. If you're going to lowball me, don't do it. If you feel that's how you're going to get out of fighting me, then that's weak. Just don't do it. So he makes it clear that he's trying to fight against Terrence Crawford. He is the mandatory for Crawford and his WBO belt, but he says it has to be a fair, compensation. He's a respected name. He also talked about a variety of different topics like Keith Thurman. But before I get too involved in this video, I'll just play it. Make sure you guys follow Shawn Porter on YouTube and check out his podcast, The Porter Way. It's good to see boxers thinking about life outside of boxing, like Shawn Porter working on his commentary. So I will put the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to his podcast and listen to some of the direct words.
Yeah, so let's get the elephant in the room addressed. So the number one question in multiple forms and varieties and everything is you and Terrence Crawford. People want to know why you haven't initiated the mandatory status, what's going on. The rumor is $1 million. Would you take $1 million? So I think just an update on that situation from you might be helpful.
Not taking $1 million.
Okay, fair enough.
I did the best I could to send a message to Bob Arum, and I also know people who know Bob, and I told them, tell Mr. Arum, I don't mean any disrespect, and I know that he doesn't. You're gonna lowball me, and don't do it. If you feel that that's the way you get out of fighting me, that's weak. Don't do it. However, if you want to make the fight happen, don't lowball me. I'm worth more than $1 million. F $1 million. I'm going to keep it as clean as possible, but I'm not fighting Terrence Crawford for $1 million. This is going to be fight of the year or definitely a candidate for fight of the year. There's no doubt. I know who I am and I know what I can do. Beyond that, I spoke to my dad just on Wednesday, and I said, "Hey, have you talked to AH?" And he says, "No, we haven't talked in a little bit." I says, "Have you thought about anything as far as the mandatories are concerned? Do you know about activating these clauses that I've been seeing in the news?" And he says, "No, I don't know about that. Let me give him a call." So that was Wednesday. On Wednesday, I expressed to him my interest in only fighting one of three people next year, if not two or all three. Those three being Manny Pacquiao, Terrence Crawford, and Errol Spence Jr.
And Keith Thurman for fun, maybe.
I specifically told him I don't want to fight Keith Thurman.
Fair enough. Never mind.
I specifically told him I don't want to fight Keith Thurman. I just feel like he's been out of the mix too long. And I think that, I'm going to be honest, I think that he will be looking for a money grab. At some point, he's going to come get backed up, and there's not going to be no one for him to fight because he's not worthy of fighting a champion. And he doesn't want to fight anybody like a Jose Cito Lopez or anybody like that that's not going to get him the money that he wants. And so he's right there in the middle of it all, where he's not there to fight anybody who's got a belt. That would be me. And not there to fight anyone who can't get him the money that he wants. And the only one who can get him the money that he wants would be me. And so I know at some point he's going to stop screaming Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. because they're not going to want to fight him. And then he's going to start trying to, come my way. And I've been down that road. That was 2016. It's 4 years later, and I've done nothing but continue to go up and progress. And I think that he has not done that. And I think that with that being said, this can't be the last door that you're knocking on because you feel like, it's the only one for you.
So you guys heard from Shawn Porter. He says, don't do it. However, if you want to make the fight happen, just don't lowball me. I'm worth more than $1 million. So he meant $1 million. He said, I'm going to keep it as clean as possible, but I'm not fighting Terrence Crawford for $1 million. Right? He says, we're fighting next year as long as the money is right. So Shawn Porter lets it be known again that he's open to fight against the likes of Terrence Crawford. I like this energy from Shawn Porter, and y'all must have forgot. I told you I talked to Kenny Porter right after this news broke. You know, he caught one of my videos and we had a conversation off the record. You know, I wasn't recording or anything, and we had a phone call and chat, and I told you pretty much the same thing. So before Shawn Porter made it public on his podcast, I told you the same thing, and it was coming from his father/trainer, Kenny Porter, that they're open and training with the intent of having a big 2021 and getting the great fights and fighting Terrence Crawford, right? Terrence Crawford is a great fighter, WBO champion, undefeated, and he stopped everyone at welterweight. This would be a magnificent fight for the fans, and that's what Shawn Porter says on his podcast regarding this. He says, you know, that's a weak way to go out if you just want to lowball me so the fight doesn't happen, because I know what I'm worth, and we're not going to take $1 million, F that. But if you want to come at me correct, we can get this rocking and sit down at the table and make this fight that the fans want to see. Shawn Porter, I like what he said. He says, if me and Crawford fight, it's going to be fight of the year. And it's hard to argue with Shawn Porter if you've ever watched his fights. The way he fights, the intensity, the shape he always comes in. The only time I can even remember him missing weight is the Ugas fight. And then he cut some of his hair off and made weight. So he was a couple ounces off or whatever, and he made it do what he do, and he had a tough fight with Ugas. Shawn Porter is tried and tested. This would be a huge step in the right direction for Terrence Crawford, as far as I'm concerned, at the welterweight division. You listen to Terrence Crawford when he's talking to people, and when he's saying, hey, fans keep giving me a hard time or dogging me for my opposition, and he oftentimes references fights that he had several years ago, like Thierry Jean or Yuriorkis Gamboa. He'll be like, oh, when I fought Gamboa, this, and that. When I fought Ricky Burns, when I fought against Victor Postal, people said this. And you notice he's constantly drawing into, you know, the fights that were had in other divisions more so than his recent fights, you know? So I think Terrence Crawford's team, maybe behind the scenes, they have to know that his resume doesn't stack up in the welterweight division like the other top guys. The other guys, they may have losses, like Keith Thurman. He just lost, hasn't been back since the Pacquiao fight. I want to, it's up to my promoter. Make sure you guys like and hit the subscribe and the bell icon for the latest, greatest content. But, you know, Keith Thurman is coming off a loss, but he can say he fought one of the best, a Hall of Famer, in Manny Pacquiao. Terrence Crawford fought the guy who allegedly beat Pacquiao, even though we know he really didn't, which was Jeff Horn. And that's not Crawford's fault. He just fought the guy, and I went to that fight. He just fought who was in front of him. I get that. But Terrence Crawford, in my position or in my perspective, he can't just be so passive about his career. You're getting the fights you're getting, and people are asking you to consider the business and consider the business decisions you're making. Because, like, yeah, you can't control Pacquiao getting robbed in Australia, but that's your opponent. So you have to understand the perception that many people had. Even Teddy Atlas, I think this was one of the rants that he did that got him kind of removed off the ESPN main commentary at the time, you know, because he was ranting about how boxing was crooked and corrupt and Pacquiao really won. And a lot of people felt this way. And this, again, Crawford he wasn't in Australia. He wasn't one of the judges. You can look at my old video. I did an immediate post-fight reaction when Pacquiao fought Jeff Horn, and I said the same thing. I thought Pacquiao won the fight. Pacquiao, you know, he didn't look his best. He looked a little bit older and stuff like that, but I still thought he won the fight handedly, you know? So Crawford, people are just asking him to do what the guys he's calling out that happen to be with PBC are doing. Errol Spence flew through a car and came back to a guy who should be ranked higher than really any of Crawford's welterweight opponents. Jose Benavidez was out of the sport for 2 years because he got shot, and whatever else was going on that kept him out the sport. So I know he wasn't, and he came from 140. And then what Top Rank did was they put him in with like 2 light touch fights, and those light touch fights, he won, but they weren't like crazy victories or anything. And as a result, Jose Benavidez then got thrown into the Crawford fight because they had that little run-in where Crawford famously told Jose Benavidez, focus on your fight before you don't make it to your fight. Amir Khan was a couple fights removed from being brutally knocked out by Canelo Alvarez. And in between that, he had one victory that lasted 38, 40 seconds against Phil LaGreco. And then Amir Khan fought Samuel Vargas and struggled in that fight. He absolutely struggled, and he got dropped and badly hurt. That was his fight right before Crawford. So Crawford keeps saying, oh, you guys don't know boxing. I'm telling you boxing. I'm telling you where these guys were and where they've been. Kell Brook hadn't made weight since 2017. These are facts. This is not like my personal opinion. Mean Machine, Aegis Kavalauskas was coming off of a Ray Robinson draw right before he fought Crawford, and he gave Crawford a tough fight. And Benavidez gave Crawford a tough fight, right? Mean Machine really lost to Ray Robinson. I believe Bomac is on tape saying that he believes that Mean Machine truly lost to Ray Robinson as well. And that was his next opponent. So you can't get mad at the fans for wanting to see you against the likes of Shawn Porter and Keith Thurman, especially when, in my opinion, Team Crawford is not being realistic when it comes to the negotiating leverage and power. Andre Ward just did the end of the year wrap up with Tim Bradley and the rest of the ESPN Top Rank crew. And he says, you guys won the battle. PBC, you won the battle. We don't have all the top welterweights, but we do, Crawford's here. So put politics aside. But that was an admission, which is what we already know and what I've been telling you, that Crawford truly isn't in the position to barter or bargain. He doesn't have any of the leverage. So if he's saying he wants 2 guys, Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao, who could very well end up fighting each other, and he's not being realistic there, in my opinion. He's saying he wants 50-50 versus either guy, or his team, Bomac said that. They want 50-50 versus either guy, or 60-40 against Errol Spence, with him getting and receiving the lion's share. That's not realistic. So Shawn Porter is right there. That's a great fight. Shawn Porter always brings it. He's never been stopped. He's always in shape. He's a rugged guy. He's an in shape guy. He doesn't poison his body. He doesn't drink and smoke. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when Jose Benavidez was out for 2 years, who knows what life he was living, what type of weight. Because if you look at Jose Benavidez now, he looks pretty big, and he's a taller guy. So he has the frame to put on weight. If you go to his Instagram right now, you see Jose Benavidez. I don't know if he's even fighting anymore, but he looks pretty big. So being out for 2 years, and he still gave Crawford a very good fight. He gave Crawford probably his toughest welterweight fight, him or Mean Machine. And Jose Benavidez actually lasted longer. He went 12 rounds on a wounded leg, So yeah, I don't even want to see the Errol Spence fight straight away, because I could go on all day about this. The other reason is because Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, it's not a monstrous financial fight. And the reason that's important is because the business, if 2 parties like Top Rank and PBC got to come together, they got to make it make sense. Like when you had Wilder and Fury, that did 800,000 to 1.2 million, the second fight. We don't know what the third one would do, but the promotion got to make sense. If these 2 entities are going to come together, otherwise they're going to see it and then split the pie and split the bill. And if it's not worth it for them, then they're going to be hesitant to do it in the future. So a lot of people with old media are prematurely rushing, like Timothy Bradley and stuff, rushing like the Spence and Crawford fight. Like, oh, it needs to happen right now. It needs to happen next. Stop waiting. And it sounds like a desperation attempt, because at the end of the day, you got to make sure the business makes sense. Errol Spence has done the heavy lifting. He should get the lion's share of money. That's how it's always been in boxing. If Hagler's the man and, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard's the man, then he's going to have, at least in the first fight with Roberto Duran, he's going to have some preferences and things go his way. It's just what it is. You see Canelo doing it all day, you know? So the reason why Spence versus Crawford can wait is because Crawford, simply put, hasn't fought the same type of names and hasn't built his buzz. His own promoter says he's not promoting right. So at the end of the day, we can pause for a second, watch a Crawford versus Keith Thurman or a Crawford versus Shawn Porter, who calls him out and just says, don't lowball me. And it would only, if Crawford gets past Shawn Porter, his boy Bernie, Team Crawford, says that Shawn Porter gets stopped. Okay, then show us. If he gets stopped, that only hypes the Errol Spence fight. Right now, Errol Spence is probably due up for a light touch because he came from a vicious, heinous car accident and he fought Danny Garcia. So I don't mind if Errol fights whoever next because he already came back. You know, I'm a realistic person. Not every fight is going to be your toughest fight. But Terrence Crawford has been in welterweight for, you know, probably a couple years now. And his best name is maybe Kell Brook, who hadn't even fought at the weight in 3 years. And the last time he fought at welterweight, he was stopped by Errol Spence. So, yeah, we can afford to squeeze in a Keith Thurman and Crawford or a Crawford and Shawn Porter, a fight like that, to show us something about Crawford, to see if we even need. Because, yes, Crawford is passing all of the eye test, and he is a skilled fighter. But he also fights a dangerous style. Sometimes when he gets hurt, he fights fire with fire. Now, Shawn Porter is an experienced guy. You can't get hurt with Shawn Porter and make bad choices. Against Mean Machine, he was able to get away with some of that stuff. Maybe Mean Machine lacked the experience. But Mean Machine hurt Crawford early on and was able to, you know, Crawford was still able to be stubborn before switching stances. But against Shawn Porter, he didn't give Errol Spence any time to breathe at all. He doesn't give you time to think and maneuver and strategize. So you're going to have to make all the adjustments right then and there with a pit bull in your face on the fly. So that's why I want to see it. And if you do it my way, then it's almost a fail-safe that Crawford versus Spence, when it does happen, will be even bigger. You know, I don't see this level of impatience from old media. Where was this energy when Lomachenko, a top-ranked fighter, just like Crawford's a top-ranked fighter, didn't fight Mikey Garcia? Where was all this, oh, the fight must happen this year, you know, or boxing suffers and all this stuff? It's all propaganda. It's all an agenda. Lomachenko should have very well fought Mikey Garcia, who was with Top Rank at one point, got, you know, left Top Rank, and was a free agent. You seen him work with PBC, but you also seen him in his last fight on DAZN. And we didn't see that. That was a big lightweight fight, and it would have been a unification, just like Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford is a unification. But once again, you see old media, and they didn't push for the fight. I did on my channel because I'm consistent. You know, I'm consistent. And that would have been a great fight. But Terrence Crawford hasn't done the same type of heavy lifting, so you shouldn't be able to not have to get through guys that Errol Spence got through, or top rated guys like Keith Thurman is having to go through, like Jose Cito Lopez, he has this resurgence in boxing and stuff like that. Keith Thurman's fighting Pacquiao and Jose Cito Lopez, Danny and Shawn Porter. Danny's fighting all the same guys pretty much, and then Granados and Porter's fighting all those guys, and Broner and Bertos, and Keith Thurman and Danny and Errol and you guys, and then Crawford ain't fought none of them, and it's because he's chosen to stay promotionally tied to someone who has none of these options, so he's going to get his minimum or whatever he's getting paid from him while everyone else does the heavy lifting. I don't think that's fair. Shawn Porter's in your face. He says he wants to fight. Your team says, you know, you'll stop Shawn Porter, so show us that. And then Errol Spence, he might even get a Pacquiao fight. So what are you going to say then? What is Team Crawford going to say if and when Errol Spence gets the Pacquiao fight? That's a big fight. And that's one of the fights that Crawford himself is seeking. So you can't really knock Errol Spence if he gets the opportunity and takes it. And I could see Pacquiao more so choosing Errol Spence over Crawford because Errol Spence puts butts in the seats. We know Pacquiao's team reached out and made public statements about potentially fighting Errol Spence. We know Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium, Dallas Cowboys aren't having a crazy season, a crazy good season. So they're looking for a big attraction. And that would be that. A Texas native, two guys that have fought in that same very venue, AT&T Stadium. Crawford versus Pacquiao, you know, is not the same as Spence versus Pacquiao if they were to happen. Spence is from Texas, so he's naturally going to bring people from that area out. A lot of Texas fans and Texans like Errol Spence. But then Pacquiao's a legend, so he, you know, it goes without saying that people would go out in droves for that fight. Terrence Crawford is from Omaha. You know, it's not a guarantee that all his fan base and like immediate friends and family can make the trek out to Las Vegas or Texas. And we're still in the pandemic, so why? Like when would Spence and Crawford fight? You know, in a pandemic with no live gate. So that's why I can see the agenda is in full effect. Doesn't that seem like a fight that would probably want to have a crowd? And that's why I think Team Crawford, they're kind of panicking because they've reached a level of, like a dead end with Crawford where they don't really have any options. So what better way than to play the blame game and just place blame and make it look like one guy's ducking, you know, an age-old trick. But Errol Spence got too many options, especially as this pandemic's going on and limited crowds and stuff like that. If crowds aren't at full capacity, why would you even want to have Crawford versus Spence? Just explain that. If let's say the fight happened in Vegas in AT&T Stadium, or excuse me, in Las Vegas Allegiant Stadium, why would you even want to do that fight? And we don't even know if crowds, if or when they can come back at full capacity. You know, it just doesn't make sense, especially when Crawford hasn't been branded the same. Versus if you have Spence and Pacquiao, that's a different animal because whatever the capacity is, that can definitely, you know, pack out an arena. That can definitely do it. There's no guarantee the way Crawford's fights have looked and his branding and stuff and his promoter throwing him under the bus and who he's fought, there's no guarantee that it will sell astronomical numbers. Both Pacquiao and Spence have both outsold Crawford. Like one of his recent pay-per-views with Keith Thurman or Broner outshines all of Crawford's two pay-per-views against Khan and Postal. They did about 50,000 and like 75, 96,000. So one Pacquiao fight with Broner on pay-per-view outsold all of Crawford, two of his fights, you know, or the Keith Thurman Pacquiao fight, they did 500,000 plus. Errol Spence is in the neighborhood of 300 to 360,000 each time out. And one of them was in a pandemic. It's a difference. So I think that Shawn Porter fight should sound appetizing to most fans. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Use my link, ESPN Plus. They have a ton of original content. It's $5.99 a month. ESPN Plus as a standalone is $5.99, but you can also get the bundle, and that's $12.99 for ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus. And Disney Plus just announced a ton of new shows, and some of your favorite shows like The Mandalorian are back. Classic Disney movies and more. So let me know what you guys think. That's my thoughts. Shawn Porter, he just says, don't lowball me. It's a great fight with Terrence Crawford. I would definitely like to see that. That's a great prequel to a potential Crawford versus Spence fight, Spence Crawford. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego. Signing off.
So obviously you fought him September 2019, didn't you? I know
buddy.
that you. I know that you said that you're the mandatory for that title.
Yeah.
You're expecting that fight. Are you expecting it as your next fight?
I'm expecting it as my next fight.
What if that's not to come until the summertime then?
Well, I mean, it's already been said. I'm the mandatory for the WBO. Amazing fight with Terrence Crawford, or the winner of this, Errol Spence Jr., who has the WBC and the IBF title.
Which do you prioritize?
I kind of prioritize, Terrence Crawford for the simple fact that you have not seen me in the ring with Terrence. You've seen what happened with Errol Spence Jr. It's about coming back, fixing some wrongs, and beating him. But I think with Terrence Crawford, whole new story, a whole bunch more conversation that has not been had yet, and that's why I favor that one. However, the way he looked tonight, you let me know when you're ready to go.
We had Terrence Crawford here on the show recently, and during our talk, he said that you and him had a conversation. Yeah. He said you guys talked personally. Yeah. My question is, why hasn't then a Crawford versus Porter fight happened?
The point in time when I called him, it was just before I had gotten it might have been just after I found out that I was going to fight for Miller. When I spoke with Crawford, it was back in maybe early July, right around there. And I just, simple conversation. Hey, are we going to do this or what? What's going on? You know, and then we had our conversation. Basically, he says, hey, man, I'm working on something big right now. And I said, all right, I'm going to respect it. I'm not going to step on your toes, man. Make it happen. Whatever it is, make it happen. I don't think at that point in time it was Kell Brook that he was working on. But he said he was working on something big, and the respect that I have for him and also his career, I said, all right, I'm going to let you do what you do. I said, hey, man, I know they're about to line me up with somebody, and you're better than the dude, and I just wanted to see if we can make it happen. And that's it. You know, simple as that. We have not had a conversation about fighting each other since early July, late July, and maybe we'll come back around after this fight with Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia.
What did you think then of Bob Arum? Bob Arum coming out and basically saying, "Look, I can't make money off of promoting Terrence Crawford. It's just I lose too much money." What did you think about him making it public? And, you know, hey, look, when Terrence was on the show, he even said, you know, hey, it's a business decision. My deal with Top Rank is up over next year. And if I have to get these big time fights with these guys, you never know. I may be a member of the PBC.
And he's going to make a business decision, and he's going to do what's best for him. I mean, people don't understand this, but when I called him and talked to him in July or whatever, we were on the phone for 30 minutes to almost an hour. And it wasn't just talking about boxing. We were talking about our lives, our families. Like, we have a genuine friendship, and I respect that and appreciate that, which is why I'm going to, with anybody else, I'll get in the ring and call you out. If you're Danny Garcia, I'll show up in your backyard if you're Errol Spence Jr. But with him, I would just really appreciate him as a person. So when we talked, it was not just about boxing. So I know him. I'm just saying that to say I know him. When it comes time for him to extend his contract with Top Rank or decide whatever he's going to do, he's going to make a business decision based on what's best for his career and what's best for his family. I definitely can see him making a move to PBC because this is where the money can be made and this is where the biggest fights can be made. If you're Bob Arum, I got a feeling Bob Arum is understanding that he may be ready to make that move, and because it's going to happen, I'm just going to say how I feel. I don't think he should do that. I think anybody who's wanting to keep their client, they're going to wine and dine their client and do whatever it takes to keep their client. So I got a feeling Bob knows what's going to happen. I think Bob's just going to take some shots anyway because he feels like the inevitable is going to happen. However, I don't feel that what he said was right. I don't agree with it. All those type of things you keep in house. You never let that kind of stuff out, because once it gets out, now you and I are talking about it. Everybody's going to talk about it. And now if Terrence Crawford decides to stay with Top Rank, now you got to mend all of these different things that you've said. That's going to be the topic of discussion. Nobody's going to talk about, oh, he stayed with Bob. Everyone's going to talk about why he stayed with Bob. Why is he staying with you? You know, so I think that I really do have a feeling that Bob is like, hey, the inevitable is about to happen. Let me just take these shots anyway. But it's something I think he should have left at home.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.